Lyrae lay on the cold ground, staring at the smoky sky. The battlefield round her was silent now, but the silence felt heavier than the sound of war hours ago. This place had been filled with screams, blasts, and the clash of machines. Now, there was nothing. The smell of burnt metal and dust filled her nose. Her body ached, and every breath felt like fire inside her chest. She tried to lift her hand, but it barely moved. Her armor was cracked, and her skin burned from deep cuts. She knew she was dying. Her people had told her that death in battle was honorable. They said that giving your life for the Empire was the greatest glory. But as she lay there, Lyrae felt no glory. She felt only pain and a deep, heavy emptiness. Her unit was gone. Her friends were gone. Her home was far away, and she would never see it again. She thought of her little brother and her mother's voice, but even those memories felt distant now, slipping away like sand through her fingers. The enemy had won. She knew it. The humans had been stronger than they were told. Her commanders had said humans were weak, slow, and simple. Yet here she was, broken on the ground. And it was humans who now walked this battlefield as victors. She tried to imagine what they would do if they found her alive. Her people had taught her that humans were cruel to captured enemies. Maybe they would kill her quickly. Maybe they would let her suffer. She shivered at the thought. She could not run. She could not fight. She was just another broken soldier lying among the dead. Slowly, she closed her eyes. She did not want to see the ruined sky anymore. She did not want to think about what would happen next. She accepted that this was the end. But then, she felt something. At first, it was faint, a sound, a voice. It was deep and soft, but she could not understand the words. It was not her language. For a moment, she thought she was imagining it, that her mind was playing tricks as her life faded. But then she felt warmth, a hand. Someone touched her arm gently. Her body tensed, but she could not fight back. The hand gripped her armor and pulled. She felt herself being lifted. It hurt, but the touch was careful. She tried to open her eyes, but the light was too bright. Her head fell against something solid. It was strange, not cold metal, not hard ground. It felt warm and alive. A voice spoke again, this time slower, softer. Her vision cleared a little. She saw a face above her, not like hers. It was human, pale skin, short dark hair, eyes that seemed tired but focused. The human was holding her, cradling her like she was something precious, not an enemy. His lips moved again, speaking words she still did not understand, but the tone was calm, gentle. Lyrae wanted to resist. Her people had told her never to let humans capture them. But she had no strength left. Her body was heavy, and her mind was drowning in darkness. She wanted to ask him why. Why was he helping her? Why didn't he just leave her to die? But she could not form the words. Her mouth would not move. Her breathing grew slower. She thought, maybe he will end it quickly. Maybe this is mercy. She felt herself being carried. She felt movement. The human's arms were strong, yet his grip was careful, as if he feared hurting her more than she already was. The world blurred around her. They passed through wreckage, broken machines, and silent bodies. She heard faint sounds in the distance. The thumping of boots, voices shouting orders. She wondered if those were more humans searching the battlefield. But the one carrying her stayed low, hiding in the shadows, moving with purpose. He was not taking her to them. He was taking her somewhere else. For a moment, fear returned. Where is he taking me? She thought. But then the fear faded. The pain in her chest grew dull, and the darkness became heavier. Her eyes closed again, but this time she did not feel like she was dying. When she woke again, everything was different. The smell of smoke and death was gone. The air was cool and clean. She was lying on a soft surface, not the hard ground. The light was dim, but it did not hurt her eyes. She could hear faint dripping water somewhere nearby. Lyrae turned her head slowly. She was inside a small room. The walls were rough stone, the ceiling low. It looked like an underground shelter. There were supplies in one corner, containers, blankets, and a small pile of strange tools. Then she saw him, the human. He was sitting nearby, leaning against the wall with his eyes closed, but his posture was tense, like he was ready to move at any moment. He had removed the outer parts of his armor, leaving only a simple undersuit. His hands were rough, scarred, like someone who had worked hard his entire life. He looked nothing like the monster she had been taught to fear. She tried to sit up, but pain shot through her body, and she let out a weak sound. His eyes opened instantly. He stood and came toward her. "You're awake," he said softly. The words were slow, and though she didn't understand his language completely, his tone was not threatening. He crouched beside her, holding out a container with water. He gestured for her to drink. Lyrae hesitated. Was it safe? She looked at him, searching for any sign of trickery, but all she saw was concern. She reached out weakly and took the water. It was cool and clean, and it soothed her dry throat. He spoke again, pointing at himself. "Aaron," he said, as if telling her his name. She blinked. "Aaron," she repeated softly, her voice almost a whisper. Then she pointed at herself with a trembling hand. "Lyrae." His lips curved slightly upward, not a full smile, but something close. He nodded. In that simple moment, something changed. She did not know who this human truly was or why he had saved her. But for the first time since the war began, Lyrae felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. Lyrae woke again to the sound of faint footsteps. The room around her was dimly lit by a single small light attached to the wall. It flickered now and then, casting long shadows across the rough stone walls. She blinked, trying to remember where she was. Then it came back to her, the battlefield, the human, the arms that carried her. She turned her head. The same human, Aaron, was moving around the room. He was quiet but purposeful, arranging supplies on the floor. There were containers of water, packets of food, and tools she did not recognize. He glanced at her briefly, then went back to his work. Lyrae tried to sit up, but her body protested. Pain spread through her chest, and she groaned softly. Aaron was at her side immediately. He knelt beside her, his hands hovering like he wanted to help but wasn't sure how. "You should not move," he said slowly. His voice was calm. Even though she understood only a few words, his meaning was clear. He made a gesture with his hand, pressing it downward, telling her to stay still. Lyrae hated feeling so weak. She was a soldier, trained to fight, yet here she was, unable to even sit up without help. She closed her eyes for a moment and forced herself to breathe steadily. Aaron stood and walked to a corner of the room. He picked up a small container and brought it to her. It was water again. This time, he helped her drink, holding the container carefully to her lips. The cool liquid felt good against her dry throat after she finished. He offered her a piece of dry food. She hesitated. Her people had warned her never to take anything from humans, but her stomach ached with hunger, and she had no choice. She took it and ate slowly. It tasted strange but gave her strength. "Why?" she asked suddenly. Her voice was weak but clear. She pointed at herself, then at him. "Why help?" Aaron paused. He looked at her for a moment, then sighed. He spoke in his language, slowly, carefully, but she could not understand all the words. Still, she could sense his meaning. He was saying he could not leave her there to die. Lyrae stared at him. She had been told humans were merciless, that they would kill any enemy without hesitation. Yet here he was, keeping her alive, feeding her, giving her water. Nothing about this made sense. She wanted to ask him more, but her body was too weak. She leaned back against the soft bedding he had made for her and closed her eyes again. The next time she woke, the room was darker. Aaron was sitting near the entrance, holding some kind of small device. He kept pressing buttons, and faint beeping sounds came from it. He seemed frustrated. Lyrae studied him quietly. Without his armor, he looked different than she had imagined. Humans would. He looked tired. His clothes were simple and torn, his hands marked by scars. He did not look like a soldier. He looked like someone who had been surviving for a long time. She gathered her courage. "Aaron," she said softly, He turned his head toward her. His expression softened. Hoop you? She asked slowly, using the few words she knew in his language. He paused, then pointed at himself. Not soldier, he said, shaking his head. He made a gesture, spreading his arms wide, then closing them as if holding something dear. Family, gone. His voice grew quieter as he said the last word. Lyrae understood. He had lost his family. Her chest tightened. She wanted to say something, but words failed her. In that moment, she realized they were not so different. Both of them had lost everything. Later, Aaron brought out a small device and placed it between them. It hummed softly. He pointed at her, then at himself, then at the device. Talk, he said. She frowned but nodded. The device was a translator. It was old and slow, but it worked at first. The words it produced were broken, but soon it became easier to understand. You are enemy, she said through the translator. Aaron shook his head. No, I do not fight you. I only live. Lyrae blinked. You saved me. Why? Because you are alive, Aaron said simply. Alive is worth saving. His words surprised her. She had never heard a human speak like that. Days passed in that underground shelter. Aaron took care of her wounds, changing the bandages with steady hands. He brought her food and water every day. He kept a small fire in the corner burning to keep the room warm. Lyrae slowly regained her strength. She could sit up now and walk. A little, though she still leaned against the wall for support. They spoke more using the translator. She told him her name, Lyrae, and about her homeworld, a place of green plains and crystal rivers. He listened quietly, never interrupting. In return, he told her about his colony. It had been a thriving human settlement before the war destroyed it. His voice grew heavy whenever he spoke of it, but he did not cry. He simply carried the weight in silence. At night, when the lights were dim, Lyrae often lay awake, thinking. She had been raised to believe humans were monsters, yet this one risked his life to save hers. It made her wonder how many other things she had been told were lies. One night, as she sat quietly, she heard a faint sound above them. Aaron immediately froze. He turned off the light and put a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. Lyrae held her breath. The sound grew louder. Boots. Many of them, voices speaking in a harsh tone. She did not recognize the language. Aaron whispered. Patrol. Her heart pounded. Patrols meant death. She had seen what they did to survivors. Aaron moved quietly, grabbing a small weapon and standing. Near the entrance, his body was tense, ready to defend them if needed. The footsteps passed slowly, echoing through the tunnels above. For a long moment, it felt like time had stopped. Finally, the sound faded. Aaron stayed still for a while, listening carefully, before finally relaxing. He glanced at her and gave a small nod. Safe, he said softly. Lyrae let out a shaky breath. In that moment, she realized something. She was not just alive because Aaron had saved her. She was alive because he continued to protect her, even when it put him in danger. For the first time since the war began, Lyrae felt something she had forgotten long ago. She felt safe. The morning came quietly. A pale light filtered through the cracks in the stone above as Aaron prepared their supplies. Lyrae sat near the entrance, watching him with a mix of nervousness and curiosity. She had never traveled with a human before, and now this human was her only hope. Ready? Aaron asked, adjusting the straps of his pack. Lyrae nodded, though her hands trembled slightly. She had healed enough to walk, but her strength was still far from full. Aaron handed her a small piece of cloth. Cover your face, he said. The air out there is not clean. She did as he said, tying the cloth around her mouth and nose. He wore one too. They both carried small bags of supplies. Aaron carried a weapon slung across his shoulder, and Lyrae noticed how his fingers stayed close to it, ready for trouble. Before leaving, Aaron knelt by the entrance, listening carefully. He motioned for silence. Lyrae held her breath. After a long moment, he nodded, clear. He whispered. They stepped out into the open. The world outside was worse than Lyrae remembered. The ground was littered with broken machines, weapons, and the remains of war. Buildings that once stood tall were now only shells. Their walls burned black. The sky hung low, gray and heavy with smoke. Every sound felt louder than it should. The crunch of their footsteps on the rubble. The faint wind that whistled through shattered windows. Even Lorraine's own breathing. "Stay close," Aaron said. His voice low. Lorraine nodded, keeping a few steps behind him. She tried to stay alert, scanning every shadow, every movement. Her instincts as a soldier told her danger could come at any moment. They moved through the ruins slowly, taking cover whenever Aaron signaled. He seemed to know these streets well. He walked carefully, avoiding open areas, and always kept his eyes on the rooftops. After an hour of walking, they reached a collapsed building and crouched inside its remains. Aaron handed Lyrae some water. She drank slowly, feeling the dryness in her throat fade. "How far?" she asked, her voice muffled by the cloth. 2 days, Aaron said. "If we move carefully, 2 days." Lyrae felt her stomach tighten. She had never traveled this far without support. No squad, no command, no safe outpost ahead. Only this human and his quiet determination. She watched him as he scanned the streets through a small gap in the wall. He looked calm, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. He was ready for trouble, just like her. "Patrols?" she asked. Aaron nodded. "They search everywhere. If they see us, they will not ask questions. They will kill us." The words sent a chill through her. She had faced death before, but this felt different. It was not a battle where she stood with others. This was survival. They continued their journey as the sun rose higher. At one point, Aaron stopped suddenly and held up his hand. Lyrae froze. "Voices," he whispered. Her heart pounded as she strained to listen. Faintly, she heard them too. Harsh voices in the distance, speaking quickly. Aaron motioned for her to follow him, and they slipped into a narrow alley between two collapsed walls. They crouched low. Staying in the shadows, a group of soldiers appeared on the street ahead. They were heavily armed, their armor marked with the symbols of the faction that had destroyed Lyrae's world. They moved in a tight formation, scanning every corner. Lyrae held her breath. If they turned this way, there would be no escape. Aaron pressed a finger to his lips, signaling for silence. He reached for his weapon, but his hand trembled slightly. Not with fear, with readiness. The soldiers paused. One of them glanced toward the alley. Lyrae felt her heart stop, but after a moment, they moved on, their heavy boots echoing against the cracked pavement. Aaron waited until the sound faded completely before speaking. "We cannot stay here," he said quietly. "They will search again." They walked for hours, stopping only when necessary. By late afternoon, they found a partially intact building with a basement. Aaron decided they would rest there for the night. Inside, it was dark and smelled of damp stone. Aaron set down their packs and started a small, smokeless fire using scraps of old wood. Lyrae sat against the wall, her body aching. "Why so many patrols?" she asked. "They control this area," Aaron said. "They do not want survivors escaping." Lyrae stared at the small flames. "My people fought them too," she said softly. "But we lost." Aaron looked at her. "We all lost," he said simply. His words carried a heavy truth. This war had destroyed both their sides. There were no real winners. As they ate a small meal of dried food, Lyrae found herself staring at Aaron. She noticed the way his eyes always stayed sharp, always scanning for danger even when they rested. She noticed the way he shared his food, without hesitation, even though they had little. "You risked for me," she said suddenly. Aaron looked at her. "What do you mean? You save me. You carry me. You protect me." "Why?" He thought for a long moment. "Because I could not do it for my own people," he said finally. "But I can do it for you." Lyrae felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had been taught humans were selfish, cruel. But this one had nothing to gain from helping her. Yet he did. "Thank you," she said quietly. Aaron gave a small nod. "Rest? Tomorrow will be harder." That night, Lyrae could not sleep. She kept thinking about the safe zone Aaron had spoken of, a place where humans and others like her lived together. Could it be real? And if it was, what would they think of her? More than that, she thought about Aaron. Why did he still fight to survive when he had lost everything? Where did his strength come from? As she drifted into uneasy sleep, one thought stayed with her. She trusted him more than she had trusted anyone in a long time. The next day began before the sun fully rose. A pale gray light stretched across the ruined city, painting the broken walls and burned streets in cold colors. Aaron woke first. He quietly packed their few supplies, checked his weapon, and listened carefully for any sounds outside. "Wake up," he said softly, shaking Lorraine's shoulder. She opened her eyes slowly, still tired from the previous day's long walk. Every muscle in her body ached, but she nodded and pushed herself up. "We move now," Aaron said. Lorraine tied the cloth around her face and followed him out of the basement. The air outside was heavy and smelled faintly of ash. They walked through the narrow streets, keeping to the shadows. Aaron moved like someone who had done this many times before, checking every corner before stepping forward, avoiding open areas whenever possible. Lorraine stayed close, matching his steps. The city was silent except for the distant creak of metal and the occasional sound of falling debris. The silence made her uneasy. In war, silence often meant danger hiding nearby. By midday, they reached the edge of the city ruins. Beyond it lay open ground, a stretch of fields and broken roads leading toward the distant hills. Somewhere beyond those hills was the safe zone Aaron had told her about. "We must cross," Aaron said, pointing to the hills. "But it is dangerous." No cover. Lorraine stared at the open ground. She had been a soldier long enough to know crossing it would make them easy targets. "Any other way?" she asked. Aaron shook his head. "Too slow. Patrols will catch us." She nodded. It was risky, but staying in the city was no safer. They moved quickly, keeping low. The broken road was uneven and filled with holes, making every step careful. Aaron kept his weapon ready, his eyes scanning the horizon for movement. Halfway across the field, Lorraine's instinct screamed at her. She grabbed Aaron's arm and pulled him down behind a rusted vehicle. "What?" he began, but she silenced him with a gesture. Voices. The sound was faint but growing. Boots striking the ground. Metal clinking. Aaron cursed under his breath. "Patrol." They crouched low, pressing themselves against the vehicle. Lorraine's heart pounded as the soldiers came into view. It was a small group, 5 of them, but they were armed and alert. Aaron's hand hovered over his weapon, but Lorraine shook her head. "Too many," she whispered. He nodded reluctantly. Fighting them would mean death. They stayed hidden as the soldiers passed, their boots crunching on the road. One of them paused, scanning the area. Lorraine held her breath, praying they would not look their way. After what felt like forever, the group moved on, disappearing into the distance. Aaron exhaled slowly. "Close," he whispered. Lorraine nodded. "To close." They waited several minutes before moving again. The open field seemed endless. The sun rose higher, heating the air, making every step heavier. Lorraine's wounds ached, but she refused to slow down. By late afternoon, they reached the base of the hills. Aaron signaled for them to stop. "Rest," he said. "We climb after dark, less chance of being seen." Lorraine sank to the ground, exhausted. Aaron handed her some water and shared a small piece of dried food. As they ate, she broke the silence. "We're soldiers." Aaron stared at the ground for a long moment before answering. "No. I worked on farms. My family grew food for our colony." Lorraine tilted her head. "But you fight like soldier." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "I learned after the war started. Everyone had to." She looked at him, studying his tired face. He had lost his home, his family, yet he still kept moving, still kept surviving. "Why you not give up?" she asked. Aaron glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Because if I give up, then everything they died for means nothing. I live because I must." His words stayed with her. She understood now. His strength did not come from training or weapons. It came from his will to keep going, even when everything was lost. As night fell, they began climbing the hills. The path was steep and rocky, forcing them to move carefully. The darkness helped hide them, but it also made every step dangerous. At one point, Lyrae slipped on loose stones. Aaron grabbed her arm, steadying her before she could fall. "Careful," he said softly. She nodded, her heart racing. When they finally reached the top, they stopped to catch their breath. From there, they could see the land stretching far into the distance. Aaron pointed to a faint glow on the horizon. "There," he said, "safe zone." Lyrae squinted. It was far away, but for the first time, hope felt real. They set up a small camp behind some rocks. Aaron started a tiny fire, just enough for warmth. As they sat in silence, Lyrae finally spoke. "When I first saw you, I thought you would kill me." Aaron glanced at her. "And now," she paused, "now I think you saved me because you are better than I was told." He said nothing, but his eyes softened. Lyrae stared at the flames. "My people told me humans are monsters, but you are not." Aaron poked at the fire with a stick. "And my people told me your kind would never stop fighting, but you are here, with me." Their eyes met. In that moment, they both understood they were more than enemies forced together by chance. They were survivors, clinging to each other. In a broken world, that night, as Lyrae lay under the cold stars, she thought about everything Aaron had said. He had lost everything yet still chose to protect her. She realized something important. If they reached the safe zone, it would not only be because of luck, it would be because of him. And for the first time, she felt she truly wanted to live. The next morning, the sky was gray, the kind of color that made the world look cold and lifeless. Aaron woke first. As always, he checked their supplies, loaded his weapon, and studied the horizon carefully. Lyrae woke soon after. Her body still ached, but she felt stronger than when this journey began. She tied the cloth over her face and joined him. "How far now?" she asked. Aaron pointed toward the distant glow they had seen the night before. "One day," he said, "if nothing stops us." His words carried weight. They both knew something could always stop them. Patrols, traps, or worse. But neither spoke of it. They began walking again, following a broken road that wound through the hills. The air was dry, and the wind carried the faint smell of smoke. Around midday, they found an abandoned outpost. It was an old military station, half buried in dirt and rubble. Its walls were cracked, and its flagpole had fallen long ago. "Shelter," Aaron said. "We rest, then we keep going." Lyrae nodded. She was glad for the break. Her legs felt heavy, and her chest still hurt from the wounds that hadn't fully healed. Inside, the outpost was dark and silent. Dust covered everything, and the air smelled of rust and decay. Aaron searched the rooms carefully, making sure it was safe. Lyrae followed him, her eyes scanning the faded symbols on the walls. She paused when she saw a console in one corner, still faintly glowing with power. "Look," she said, pointing. Aaron walked over. "Strange. This place still works." The console was old but functional. Aaron brushed away the dust and tapped its screen. To his surprise, it turned on. A logo appeared, one Lyrae recognized immediately. It was the symbol of her own empire. Her heart skipped a beat. "This is my people's outpost." Aaron frowned. "Your people? Then why is it here? This is human land." Lyrae felt a chill. She had no answer. Why would her empire build a station this deep inside human territory? Aaron tapped through the system, his fingers moving quickly. The translator hummed beside them, doing its best to turn the alien words into something he could understand. After a few moments, the console opened a series of files, reports, orders, records of military operations. Aaron read the translated words silently, his face growing darker with each line. Lyrae stepped closer. "What is it?" He looked at her, his expression heavy. "It says, your empire attacked first." Her stomach twisted. "No, that cannot be." Aaron scrolled further, showing her the reports. "Look, this is from years ago. Plans for invasion, orders to strike human colonies. They wanted to take this land before the humans could build defenses." Lyrae stared at the screen, her mind spinning. All her life, she had been told the humans started the war. that her people were only defending themselves. But here was proof, written by her own commanders, showing the opposite. No, she whispered. They lied. Aaron said nothing. He just watched her, his eyes filled with something between sympathy and anger. Lyrae stumbled back, sitting on a broken chair. Her hands trembled. All this time, I fought for them. I believed them. And they were the ones who began this. She felt sick. Everything she had endured, everything her people had suffered, was built on a lie. Aaron crouched beside her. Now you understand, he said quietly. This war took everything from both of us. But it began with them. She looked at him, her vision blurred with tears she didn't want to shed. You knew. He hesitated. I suspected. I heard. Stories. But I did not want to tell you until you saw it yourself. Her voice shook. Why didn't you tell me? Because I needed you to trust me, he said honestly. And because I didn't want you to hate me for the truth. Lyrae felt anger rise in her chest. Anger at her empire for lying. Anger at Aaron for keeping this from her. You should have told me. Aaron didn't look away. Would you have? Believe me, the question cut deep. She wanted to argue, but she knew the answer. She would not have believed him. She leaned back, covering her face with her hands. Her entire world felt broken. They stayed in the outpost for hours. Aaron gave her space, sitting on the other side of the room while she tried to make sense of what she had learned. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. I do not know who I am anymore. Aaron walked over and sat beside her. You are someone who survived. That is enough for now. She lowered her hands and stared at him. What do I do now? If I go to this safe zone, I am a traitor. If I stay loyal to my people, I'm fighting for liars. Aaron met her gaze. You choose for yourself. Not for them, not for me, for you. His words were simple, but they held a kind of strength she could not ignore. That night, they sat by a small fire in the outpost. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. Lyrae broke it first. Do you hate my people? Aaron stared into the flames. I hate what they did. But I don't hate you. His answer surprised her. Why? Because you are not them, he said simply. You are you. Lyrae looked down, her thoughts tangled. For the first time, she understood that the war was not just sides and enemies. It was people. People like Aaron, people like her. When she finally lay down to sleep, one thought stayed with her. If her empire had lied about the war, what else had they lied about? And when the morning came, she knew one thing for certain. She could never go back to who she was before. The morning came cold and quiet. The sky was heavy with clouds, covering the hills in dull gray light. Aaron stood near the broken doorway of the outpost, staring toward the horizon. The faint glow of the safe zone was still visible in the distance. One day, he said softly when Lyrae joined him. She followed his gaze. That small glow had become more than light. It was a promise, a place where maybe, just maybe, they could start again. But doubt still gnawed at her. What if it was not what Aaron believed? What if her people there saw her as a traitor? Do you think they will accept me? She asked quietly. Aaron looked at her. If they don't, they are fools. He said simply, you deserve to live. The words surprised her. Simple, but strong. She nodded. They left the outpost as the sun rose higher. The ground between them and the safe zone was open and dangerous, but they had no choice. Aaron kept his weapon ready, scanning for movement. The road sloped downward, and soon they were walking across a wide stretch of cracked earth. Every step felt exposed. Lyrae's heart beat faster with every sound, the crunch of loose rocks, the whisper of wind. They had walked for hours when Aaron suddenly stopped and raised his hand. Lyrae froze. Patrol. A group of soldiers appeared on the ridge ahead. They were heavily armed, their armor carrying the same cruel insignia she had seen on the documents in the outpost. They saw us, Aaron whispered. Lyrae's stomach dropped. The soldiers shouted and began moving toward them. Run, Aaron said. Sharply. They sprinted across the rough ground. Lyrae's wounds screamed with pain, but she forced her legs to move. Behind them, the soldiers gave chase, their boots pounding against the earth. Aaron grabbed her hand and pulled her toward a cluster of large rocks. They slid behind them, taking cover as bullets ripped through the air. Dust flew round them. "We cannot outrun them," Lyrae said, breathing hard. Aaron's jaw tightened. "Then we fight." Lyrae stared at him. "There are too many." His eyes met hers. "Then we fight anyway." Aaron leaned out from behind the rock and fired his weapon, forcing the soldiers to take cover. Lyrae picked up a broken piece of metal lying nearby. Not much of a weapon, but better than nothing. The soldiers spread out, closing in. Aaron fired again, hitting one of them. But there were still more, and they were getting closer. Lyrae felt fear rise in her chest, but she forced herself to stay calm. She had been a soldier once. She would not die cowering. "Aaron," she said, gripping the metal tightly, "if we fall together." He gave a small nod. Together. The fight was chaos. Aaron fired as quickly as he could, taking down another soldier. Lyrae lunged at one who tried to flank them, swinging the metal with all her strength. It struck the soldier's helmet, knocking him off balance. But they were still outnumbered. A soldier charged at Aaron, tackling him to the ground. Aaron struggled, trying to keep the weapon away from his face. "No!" Lyrae screamed. She ran forward and struck the soldier with her makeshift weapon. He fell back, giving Aaron just enough time to grab his gun and fire. For a moment, everything was still. Then they realized the remaining soldiers were retreating. Whether they were regrouping or calling for reinforcements, Lyrae didn't know. "We cannot stay," Aaron said, standing shakily. "They will be back." They ran again, not stopping until the hills gave way to a wide plain. In the distance, the glow of the safe zone was brighter now, almost within reach. Lyrae stumbled, falling to her knees. Her body could not take much. Aaron crouched beside her. "Get up," he said firmly. "I cannot," she gasped. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "Yes, you can. Look ahead." "We are almost there." She looked. The glow was no longer just light. She could see faint outlines of walls and towers. It was real. She took a deep breath and pushed herself up. By evening, they reached the edge of the safe zone. A tall gate loomed before them, guarded by sentries. Their armor was different, a mix of human and alien design. Aaron raised his hands, slowly, showing he meant no harm. Lyrae did the same. The sentries shouted something, then lowered their weapons slightly. One of them stepped forward. "Who are you?" he asked. "Survivors," Aaron said. "We need refuge." The sentry looked at them for a long moment, then nodded. "Follow me." The gates opened with a deep groan. Inside, Lyrae could hardly believe what she saw. Humans and others of her kind walked together. Some wore work clothes, some armor. But none carried the hostility she had grown used to. Children played in the streets. Markets bustled quietly with trade. It was not perfect, but it was alive. Aaron glanced at her. "Safe," he said softly. Lyrae felt tears well in her eyes. She had not cried since the war began, but now she let them fall. A medic approached and led them to a small clinic. They were given food, water, and clean clothes. Lyrae sat on a bed, staring at the floor, trying to process everything. Aaron sat across from her. "We made it," he said. She nodded slowly. "Yes." But her mind was still full of questions. Who could she be now? A soldier with no empire. A refugee among strangers. "Aaron," she said quietly. "Yes." "Why did you keep going, even when everything was lost?" He looked at her, his expression soft. "Because living is the only way to win." His words stayed with her. That night, as she lay on the bed, Lyrae thought of everything. The lies of her empire, the war that had destroyed them all, the human who had carried her when she was ready to die. She had closed her eyes expecting death. Instead, she had opened them to life. For the first time in a long time, she believed she could live, and she would. The next day began before the sun fully rose. A pale gray light stretched across the ruined city, painting the broken walls and burned streets in cold colors. Aaron woke first. He quietly packed their few supplies, checked his weapon, and listened carefully for any sounds outside. "Wake up," he said softly, shaking Lyrae's shoulder. She opened her eyes slowly, still tired from the previous day's long walk. Every muscle in her body ached, but she nodded and pushed herself up. "We move now," Aaron said. Lyra tied the cloth around her face and followed him out of the basement. The air outside was heavy and smelled faintly of ash. They walked through the narrow streets, keeping to the shadows. Aaron moved like someone who had done this many times before, checking every corner before stepping forward, avoiding open areas whenever possible. Lyra stayed close, matching his steps. The city was silent except for the distant creak of metal and the occasional sound of falling debris. The silence made her uneasy. In war, silence often meant danger hiding nearby. By midday, they reached the edge of the city ruins. Beyond it lay open ground, a stretch of fields and broken roads leading toward the distant hills. Somewhere beyond those hills was the safe zone Aaron had told her about. "We must cross," Aaron said, pointing to the hills. "But it is dangerous." No cover. Lyra stared at the open ground. She had been a soldier long enough to know crossing it would make them easy targets. "Any other way?" she asked. Aaron shook his head. "Too slow. Patrols will catch us." She nodded. It was risky. But staying in the city was no safer. They moved quickly, keeping low. The broken road was uneven and filled with holes, making every step careful. Aaron kept his weapon ready, his eyes scanning the horizon for movement. Halfway across the field, Lyra's instinct screamed at her. She grabbed Aaron's arm and pulled him down behind a rusted vehicle. "What?" he began, but she silenced him with a gesture. Voices. The sound was faint but growing. Boots striking the ground. Metal clinking. Aaron cursed under his breath. "Patrol." They crouched low, pressing themselves against the vehicle. Lyra's heart pounded as the soldiers came into view. It was a small group, 5 of them, but they were armed and alert. Aaron's hand hovered over his weapon, but Lyra shook her head. "Too many," she whispered. He nodded reluctantly. Fighting them would mean death. They stayed hidden as the soldiers passed, their boots crunching on the road. One of them paused, scanning the area. Lyra held her breath, praying they would not look their way. After what felt like forever, the group moved on, disappearing into the distance. Aaron exhaled slowly. "Close," he whispered. Lyra nodded. "Too close." They waited several minutes before moving again. The open field seemed endless. The sun rose higher, heating the air, making every step heavier. Lyra's wounds ached, but she refused to slow down. By late afternoon, they reached the base of the hills. Aaron signaled for them to stop. "Rest," he said. "We climb after dark, less chance of being seen." Lyra sank to the ground, exhausted. Aaron handed her some water and shared a small piece of dried food. As they ate, she broke the silence. "You were soldiered?" Aaron stared at the ground for a long moment before answering. "No. I worked on farms. My family grew food for our colony." Lyra tilted her head. "But you fight like soldier." He gave a short, humorless laugh. "I learned after the war started. Everyone had to." She looked at him, studying his tired face. He had lost his home, his family, yet he still kept moving, still kept surviving. "Why you not give up?" she asked. Aaron glanced at her, his expression unreadable. "Because if I give up, then everything they died for means nothing. I live because I must." His words stayed with her. She understood now. His strength did not come from training or weapons. It came from his will to keep going, even when everything was lost. As night fell, they began climbing the hills. The path was steep and rocky, forcing them to move carefully. The darkness helped hide them, but it also made every step dangerous. At one point, Lyra slipped on loose stones. Aaron grabbed her arm, steadying her before she could fall. "Careful," he said softly. She nodded, her heart racing. When they finally reached the top, they stopped to catch their breath. From there, they could see the land stretching far into the distance. Aaron pointed to a faint glow on the horizon. "There," he said, "safe zone." Lyra squinted. It was far away, but for the first time, hope felt real. They set up a small camp behind some rocks. Aaron started a tiny fire, just enough for warmth. As they sat in silence, Lyra finally spoke. "When I first saw you, I thought you would kill me." Aaron glanced at her. "And now," she paused. "Now I think you saved me because you are better than I was told." He said nothing, but his eyes softened. Lyrae stared at the flames. "My people told me humans are monsters, but you are not." Aaron poked at the fire with a stick. "And my people told me your kind would never stop fighting, but you are here, with me." Their eyes met. In that moment, they both understood they were more than enemies forced together by chance. They were survivors, clinging to each other. In a broken world, that night, as Lyrae lay under the cold stars, she thought about everything Aaron had said. He had lost everything yet still chose to protect her. She realized something important. If they reached the safe zone, it would not only be because of luck, it would be because of him. And for the first time, she felt she truly wanted to live.